Hello everyone, welcome back to Good Morning Sri Lanka. Now I did promise an interview with Mr. Tamitagama. He's the founding president of Lanka Alzheimer's Lanka Alzheimer's Association, and he's here to speak to us about dementia and Alzheimer's disease. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Now, could you give us a little bit of an introduction into what dementia is and Alzheimer's significance within the dementia problem?
Yes, a simple explanation for dementia is the fact that we have a capacity in our brain to manage millions of messages going back and forth, and what dementia does is that it prevents messages going back and forth in the brain, and it's caused by plaque and tangles. So the neurons get tangled, and plaque forms on the edge of the neurons and prevent messages going through. And several diseases contribute to dementia. Alzheimer's disease being the most prevalent. Around 60 to 65% of the people who get dementia come through the Alzheimer's route. Mm-hmm. So that's an important consideration. One of the key things about dementia is the fact that it is related to age. More people get dementia commencing around 60, 65, and roughly 50% of the population over the age of, say, 95 would have dementia. We won't have time to talk about what causes dementia, but I'm more interested in talking on preventative measures as well as looking at how we as individuals can prevent dementia. Basically, that's the message I have for everybody. Dementia, we really don't know how dementia starts. It's one of those mysterious disorders, and the reality is that everybody is at risk, irrespective of who it is anywhere in the world. We are all at risk. The risk gets higher as we go older. Surprisingly, there are people in their 30s who have been diagnosed with dementia now around the world. So the reality is that we should encourage our young people. It's interesting, this is a sports program, that young people to start thinking in terms of how to look after themselves, how to stay healthy, and not necessarily in the context of exercise. That is one of the elements, but there are several other elements that we need to take into consideration in order to stay wholesome and healthy throughout life. And my personal view is that we can prevent dementia, but it's an individual story. We have to actually take on the responsibility to look after ourselves, not only in terms of the physical part of our bodies and exercise, and nutrition is a very important factor. For me, number one is the fact that we should entertain only positive thoughts in our minds. That's a personal view. That we have roughly 40 to 60,000 thoughts going through our minds every day, surprisingly, but that is so. It has been established. So just imagine if we have more positive thoughts in our minds, then our whole being is energized as a result of positive thoughts. So that's my personal view, is that we should start thinking in those terms as it doesn't matter what age it is, but even as young people, we need to consider how we can stay positive. And by staying positive, we also provide a framework for our relationships as well. Yes. So that also, the social consciousness also increases, and the social consciousness is also an important factor in keeping healthy.
And now, very recently, the World Health Organization has released a report on recommending countries to pay special attention to age-related disorders, particularly with 35.6 million people affected worldwide. This is very significant. Could you comment about this?
Well, I was in London 2 weeks ago, gosh yes, 2 weeks ago for the Alzheimer's Disease International Conference, and where we actually launched the premise to work with WHO. My personal feelings about that report is that we have finally come out of the closet, and that WHO has recognized the fact that dementia is a major health disorder, and they have said so. They have said so that it is the most prominent disorder of the 21st century. Now that means that everybody should wake up. It doesn't matter who it is around the world, wake up and take notice that we have a situation where right now we have 35.7 million people with dementia, and Sri Lanka, the prevalence rate is estimated 150,000. That may be a small figure in terms of numbers, but with the services available in Sri Lanka, for example, that is a large number, 150,000, large number. So now we have actually come to an understanding that dementia has to be considered by everybody, irrespective of who it is, and whether it's the public sector, the private sector, individuals. We need to consider that, taking stock of the fact that dementia is a threat. Threat to humanity.
Yeah, it is a growing threat, particularly with the aging population.
Yes.
A big part of them are affected with these problems.
Well, it's a reality, because as we grow older, our toxic levels in our bodies get higher and higher. So it's a natural thing that as we get older, the risk is higher. So at 95, the risk is 50%.
Yes.
But at age 60, it will be somewhere around 5 to 7%. There's a risk factor. But those are all figures. My personal concern is that individuals, all of us as individuals, should consider that it is a personal responsibility to stay healthy.
Yes. But talking about how now as we grow older, a lot of people have to, the states requires that there is a retirement age. You have to retire by a certain age, and now a growing number of our population is age-related. They say that Asia accounted for only 44% of the global elderly population in 1950, but by 1950 this share is projected to increase to 62%, and the Sri Lanka's share of the population who are going to be aged over 60 will increase from 11% currently to 16% by 2020. I would be part of that aging population. Would I have to consider another career at that point?
Well, I think we should all consider that as a very important aspect of our lives, that we shouldn't give up our careers and our work at age 55. I have a very amusing way of describing it in Sri Lanka. I've seen it on a lot of sitcoms, the Hansiputu Padikama syndrome, where a person who retires, they're given a Hansiputu and a Padikama, and there's a Bulat Teppo beside. I've seen this. But that whole scenario should change. I'm working much harder now than when I was actually productive work in my earlier years. I'll be batting in my 80th innings this year. So from my perspective, the chronological age does not have anything to do with one's whole outlook on life. That's my personal perspective, is that we can go on to better things as we get older. One of the news items I read in the newspaper in London this time was that's the key to the whole thing, that a 93-year young lady was given an extension to a driving license. Now just think about it, 93. And she was told to go slow on the road. So from my perspective, we need to consider that life doesn't end at 55 when we retire. And we need to look at second careers, and we need to have some way for the private sector and the public sector and all of the communities to look at that, to keep people busy. But it stems from a personal adventure. Wow. Individuals have to take the responsibility to widen their perspective and actually look at second careers, third careers, and volunteer work. It doesn't matter what one does, But one has to keep oneself engaged, keep the mind busy, and that's the reality. Keeping the mind occupied is a fundamental virtue to prevent anything happening in the brain as well.
That is very important. Now, if we don't keep our minds active, we are more likely to face isolation and depression later on in years as well.
Yes.
Could you tell me about ways that maybe the state sector or the community as a whole can help our aging population face these problems?
Well,
and that is also
the reality is that depression is present more so in the aging population than in the young population. But again, it is a personal matter, how one should keep active. You can preach to people, but that doesn't help. Each person should take the responsibility to say, how can I keep active? What are the things that I can do? How can I use my resources, my experience, all of those things, and see how I can keep busy? And there are lots of things that people can do. Look at the volunteer work that one can do around Sri Lanka. Number of people have asked me, what can I do? I said, just look around your community and see how you can help. We have, I don't know, 19,000 villages around Sri Lanka, and in each village has a group of elders. And if those people come together and they can make that village the pride and place of their existence. But elders can do that. But they need to take that responsibility. We can't wait for people to tell them to do it. We have to do it ourselves. And that's a marching order for all elders, from my perspective.
I think it's a very good marching order. It's something for me to keep in mind as well when I face my aging years as well. Because the thing is, it is a very prevalent problem now, but it's going to get a lot worse coming on. Talking a little bit more about how to keep active. Now, in a lot of Western countries, due to the high degree of internet penetration, they use the internet to stay in touch, get in touch with like-minded individuals using social networks like Facebook to keep in touch. Unfortunately, this is not possible in Sri Lanka. But what do you say to the idea of introducing internet to the elderly in Sri Lanka?
Wonderful idea. Wonderful idea. In terms of making their world a larger one, that they can actually relate to people around the world, there are lots of beautiful ideas on internet, and elders would be we should encourage elders to do that, because there's your generation, yes, they are used to internet, but people in their 60s and 70s right now, they have never used a computer, and it becomes, they don't know what it's all about. They're fearful of it. But given the opportunity to actually make connections with other people around the world and see what the other people are saying around the world, and that's, it doesn't matter what a particular interest one has, there is information available on the internet. And it's a wonderful idea if you can do that. And it is not very costly to get on internet and use a computer. So maybe that should be one of the things that the private and public sector should be looking at.
Yes.
Yes, introducing the computer to the young children is fine, but then what about the seniors? We should encourage them to do that.
Yes, just an idea. Well, unfortunately, we've run to the very end of our interview, but thank you so much for joining us, Mr. Thamtegama.
You're most welcome.
Well, we're going to take a little break. I will see you guys on the other side of this with Harith.